Hey guys, and welcome back to Movies That Matter with the Viking, and this has confused a lot of people about the reports of Michael Keaton coming back to portray the Dark Knight, the Batman from the 1989 Batman films in the DCEU going forward, and specifically in the Flashpoint solo film that's coming in 2022. Now, I'm all for this. I'm excited. I can't wait for this. I can't wait for this big multiverse that DC is setting up. I've said it for months now that this isn't the DCEU that we've known before with Man of Steel and BVS. This is a multiverse of DC content. Everything is connected and everything is not connected, so it's kind of confusing, but just go with it, guys. Just go with the flow. For me, the MCU has brainwashed people that it has to be in a linear way to tell a cinematic story. No, you can tell these individual stories. They don't have to link up together. Some of them have to, some of them don't. Just go tell good content that people are going to enjoy. People were so confused. What does this mean for the DCEU going forward? What's it mean for Ben Affleck's Batman? Who is the Batman? What's it mean? We heard that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is also coming back. So this is just confusing, people were saying. And people are saying that Warner Bros. Don't know what they're doing, that the DC is in disarray, there is no linear timeline and all this. And you know what? Just enjoy it. Just go with the flow. But my interpretation of it all is just enjoy it. Try and have some fun with it all. But as the news broke yesterday, different articles started coming out about what was actually going on. The news broke and people were actually shocked of what was coming out, that Michael Keaton could be coming back. Now, Sean O'Connell, the managing director at Cinema Blend and the author of the hashtag Release the Shaniqua Movement book, put out a post saying, "We were in London for Birds of Prey and randomly ran into Andy Muschietti outside of our hotel. We chatted and he mentioned working on Flashpoint. I asked him, will Jeffrey Dean Morgan return? He smiled and said, we actually have a different idea." And if you don't know Andy Muschietti, he is the Flash director. Sean O'Connell ran into him. He asked about Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays Thomas Wayne in the DCU, and he says we actually have a different idea. And now talks of Michael Keaton possibly joining the cast and coming back as Batman. So this has been in the works for months and months, and that's how things go in Hollywood. We as a fan base don't hear about things till much later, until things are actually signed and confirmed. Ray Fisher has been in talks for over 6 months to be in the Flash film, and it was only kind of broke the other week there about it. So that's interesting that Andy Muschietti had a different plan, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is out. We've heard different reports that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in fact going to play the Flashpoint Batman, and Michael Keaton could also show up. So we all know Grace Randolph at this point. She breaks a lot of stories, she believes that she has a lot of information, a lot of sources, and she had her own say on the events that took place yesterday. She said, as recent as December 2019, Thomas Wayne was in Flashpoint. My source is 100 on that, and you'd be shocked how many casting grids have typos. So she says that Thomas Wayne was supposed to be in this Flashpoint film, but she also thinks that Michael Keaton could end up playing Thomas Wayne in the Flashpoint film, which for me that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you have Jeffrey Dean Morgan there, why would you bring Michael Keaton, who is known for playing Batman, who's known for playing Bruce Wayne, come in and play Thomas Wayne? For me, that would just confuse the general audiences a lot. It would even confuse me as a person who is up to date in these things. But why would you get Michael Keaton to play Thomas Wayne? So I think she's completely off on that point. I think he will come back and play Bruce Wayne from the Burtonverse, from the 89 film that we've seen, but I don't think he's going to play a version of Ben Affleck. She even started having a go at other kind of reporters and other articles that were coming out, and specifically The Wrap, who broke this information. She goes, wow, now I'm seeing a claim from The Wrap reporter that Thomas Wayne isn't even in Flashpoint, aka the Flash movie. Here's the actual casting grid role listed back in December 2019. I'd say the role moved beyond development, and she released this, and this is actually extraordinary. This is the casting grid for the Flash film, and I don't know if she was supposed to release this or not, because it has a lot of information in it. Of course, we get to see that Ezra Miller's Flash would be at the top of this, but we get to see Nora Allen, who played, of course, is Barry's mother, looking for someone to cast in that. They don't have anyone at that point for that role. Then I had Thomas Wayne, lead male 50, Bruce Wayne's father, and I had Jeffrey Dean Morgan at the side, and it said circling, so that means that his contract wasn't set in stone. He was only in negotiations with Warner Brothers. And then you see Cyborg, strong supporting role and things like that. Ray Fisher set, that means that he has confirmed, he has signed a deal, and he will appear in the film. So I don't know if she was supposed to release this, but there's nothing on this casting sheet about Michael Keaton or Bruce Wayne coming into the story. But of course things can change, because as we know, Zack Snyder's Justice League is coming, and that has opened up a new dilemma. And even in that casting grid, there is nothing about Kirstie Clemons coming back to play Iris West. Of course, she will make her debut as the character in Zack Snyder's Justice League in 2021. So maybe this will change things going forward for her being in the Flash film. She also said again, this was back in December 2019, Jeffrey Dean Morgan never closed his deal. And if that's true, that's kind of a bummer to hear that Jeffrey Dean Morgan didn't sign on for the Flashpoint film. Of course, things might have changed since then, but at that time he didn't. But remember, he put up that cryptic picture of himself in the comedian mask back in December 2019, saying here's to a masked return in 2020. So maybe he did have an agreement of some sorts that he would come back to a certain extent, and I hope he does. Grace also said, look, Michael Keaton as Thomas Wayne and Flashpoint is my theory. I presented a very, very solid case. Jeffrey Dean Morgan never closed his deal back in December. The role is open. Warner Brothers had no comment on any of today's reports. It's all speculation. Keaton could even pass. We'll see. And Michael Keaton isn't set in stone. He hasn't signed a concrete contract saying that he will appear. This is early negotiations. This is early talks. So he might appear, he might not appear. I hope he does. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan is probably in the same role. He probably is in early talks and hasn't signed on completely yet. But we had reports 2 days ago that he was going to appear in the film. So at the minute, everything is kind of up in the air. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Grace also said a lot of speculation regarding the Multiverse of Madness Flashpoint style movie. Warner Brothers already referenced Back to the Future while developing the Flash 2022. Barry likely wakes up in one new timeline with Thomas Wayne as Batman. Barry fixes timeline. Thomas likely comes back with him. That's it. So that's her theory, that's her interpretation of everything. And she also says, look, you might not want to believe it, but here's what we know regarding Michael Keaton and the Flash playing Batman. An older character that could show up in other movies. That's Thomas Wayne. Duh. In comics, he leaves Flashpoint time and becomes a regular character. It still doesn't make sense to me that Michael Keaton would play Thomas Wayne, because audiences know him as Bruce Wayne in the 1989 Burton film, so it wouldn't make sense for me, and I'm sure you guys can agree that him playing Thomas Wayne just doesn't add up for me as a fan. And she also said, what's more likely, fan favourite Oscar winner Michael Keaton is returning to play Thomas Wayne Batman, or there will be 2 Batman in the Flash movie, and Warner Brothers will open the Pandora's box of other verses like a Burton verse after all the Schneider Cut drama. Look, they can do it this way. They can have Thomas Wayne played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. They can have Bruce Wayne Batman from a different timeline, from the Burtonverse timeline of Michael Keaton, and still make it work. Jeffrey Dean Morgan doesn't have to be in the majority of the film because, to be honest, audiences don't remember or don't know that he played Thomas Wayne in Batman vs Superman. It's only the hardcore, diehard fans that will actually remember this. So I think having him in the cameo would be very pleasing towards fans. Also, I think Michael Keaton, of course, is universally known as the Batman. He is famous for the role. Some regard him as the best Batman of all time. So he is very good and people know him. So I think Michael Keaton will have a much, much larger role than Jeffrey Dean Morgan will. And I think Michael Keaton, the reports are saying that he could be used in a Nick Fury-like style, as in turning up in different DCEU movies. Now, how interesting would that be? So that's all the drama and confusion that was happening yesterday. We've no absolute concrete confirmation that this is happening. It's all reports and speculation, much like the Jeffrey Dean Morgan information also. So who knows what's going to happen. But for me, Michael Keaton coming back as the Capes Crusader is good. It's amazing. It's a dream come true to see him come back in kind of like a Batman Beyond essence. We have Ben Affleck, we have Jeffrey Dean Morgan, we have Robin Pattinson, we have Michael Keaton. They're all Batman. Just enjoy this multiverse that Warner Brothers are giving us. But my interpretation of things yesterday was we won't have a theatrical DCU Batman kicking ass. Keaton's will be the mentor of that DCEU. And what do I mean by that? I mean that Ben Affleck said he's done. I don't think he's going to be in any theatrical films. Maybe, I hope, a cameo in the Flash film to see the letter he gets from his father. That would be a very heartbreaking and emotional scene, but I think that's it for him on the big screen as Batman. HBO Max is a different story though. I think he could still end up doing a Batman series or Batman Justice League films with Zack Snyder at the helm because he has huge respect for him. So I think Michael Keaton could be that Nick Fury type in the DCU. He doesn't have to fight. He won't be kicking ass like we see Ben Affleck's Batman do in the Nightmare sequence or anything like that. I'm talking about him just being an essence in this DCU multiverse. Now, if you want a kicking ass Batman, that's going to be the theatrical Batman trilogy that we're going to get with Robert Pattinson. And that is DC Black. That's its own thing on its own universe, much like the Joker. It does not connect to the DCU. It does not connect to anything that Zack Snyder's doing. It's in the DCU multiverse, but it doesn't connect to anything. It's its own thing on its own earth. It's its own role. Then we come to Ben Affleck's Batman. I think Ben Affleck could come back for future Justice League movies and maybe a Batman film or TV show on HBO Max, but only on HBO Max. I do not think he is coming back on the big screen. I think he is committed to Zack Snyder if he wants to go back and do more roles, if Zack wants to go back and do more movies, but I think Ben Affleck is solely in the Snyder verse. So we have the DCU multiverse, we got the DC Black, we got the DC Snyderverse. Now, all three of those kind of timelines could feature some of the same actors. We got Gal Gadot appearing in Zack Snyder's Snyderverse. We've got Gal Gadot appearing in her own DCU multiverse on the big screen with her Aquaman or Wonder Woman trilogy, much like Jason Momoa's Aquaman trilogy, and in the Flash. These actors will be in other universes. They will be in the Zack Snyder world. They will be in the DCU big screen world. But they don't necessarily have to connect those stories together. They don't even have to reference those stories. We know as audiences that they went through these things in some kind of Flashpoint paradox and different timelines, different arts and things like that. We just enjoy each director's vision of these characters and of these stories, and that's how it's going to work in my view. And I said, guys, just enjoy this. The MCU has people brainwashed that everything needs to be connected or make sense in a linear way. Just go with the flow. Try and enjoy it. Take it as it comes. Be excited. I'm excited. I can't wait. So people are saying that Michael Keaton is going to replace Ben Affleck as the DCU Batman. No. Ben Affleck is Batman. This is Michael Keaton's Batman from the Burtonverse. He isn't coming in to replace Ben Affleck's Batman as such, as playing an older Ben Affleck. No, he will be playing his own character from his own two films, from the Burton films, and just be placed in the DCU, maybe in a mentoring role. If they do a Batgirl film, he could show up there. If they do a Nightwing film, he could show up there as more of a mentor. He won't be kicking ass and taking names like the old days. He'll be a mentor and kind of educating these characters on the right and wrong and how to be a hero, and that would be pretty cool. Another interpretation I had of it all was the HBO Max Snyderverse. That's the 5-story arc that Zack Snyder had planned. Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League 1, 2 and 3. I think that's what HBO Max is right now, and that could lead to other films and projects in the Snyderverse, such as Deathstroke, such as Batman's solo film and things like that. I think that's a possibility. Of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League has to be amazing. It has to be a success for this to happen. But I think HBO Max is solely Zack Snyder's playground for a 5-story arc if they want him to come back and if he wants to come back. Now, Ben Affleck, he can return, but only on HBO Max. He will not be connected to the big screen and show up in Wonder Woman or Aquaman. I think he could show up in the Flash movie though, just to do that little scene, because I think that would be pretty cool. But Ben Affleck in Justice League movies on the big screen, in theaters, or Ben Affleck Batman movies, those days are gone. HBO Max seems to be the place for those. Keaton, I said on Twitter, Keaton will replace Affleck as the DCU Batman on the big screen, and people kind of got me wrong there. They thought that I meant replacing him as that Batman. No, I mean Keaton being his own Batman in this world from the Burtonverse and showing up in other films as the DCU on-screen Batman. And this is another thing I had. HBO and DCU have some of the same actors, but all not necessarily connected. I've already talked about that. So that's what I think is happening. That's just my interpretation. That's just my theory of the whole situation. And I hope that I'm not too far wrong, because I think that makes a lot of sense. Also, they teased Batman 89 for the DC fandom event, which was surprising there last week. And nobody really passed any remarks on it, nobody thought much of it, but actually now it makes a lot more sense. So we'll have to see what's actually going to happen. I actually think that's amazing for the DCU moving forward because it caters to all ages, to all people, to all interests. For me, the MCU was very linear. It kind of, it's for a one audience kind of thing, and there's a formula that works, and it's fine for the MCU and they have everything connected. But even the MCU has plot holes. It really does. And they're supposed to be perfect at explaining everything, but it does have plot holes to an extent. But my mate Super Batsy had a very cool image he got put together, and this is it right here. And this kind of makes sense if you look at it this way. So we have DCU multiverse, okay? Now, the Snyderverse. Zack Snyder's Justice League. HBO Max. That's his world. That's Zack Snyder's playground. That's on HBO Max solely. He can have his Justice League trilogy if they let him. He has his own incarnation of Ben Affleck's Batman, his own incarnation of Ezra Miller's Flash, and Henry Cavill's Superman. Then if we go over to the DCU multiverse that we see on the big screen in theaters, this is what I was talking about. You've got films like Birds of Prey. You've got The Suicide Squad that's coming. You got Shazam. You got Flashpoint. And Flashpoint, in that kind of Earth 1, he's able to dive into DC Black if he wanted to. He's able to dive into the Snyderverse if he wanted to. He's able to dive into the CW that we've already seen back in January. So that's what the Flashpoint in that Earth 1 can do. And that's pretty amazing. And that also gives the opportunity for Michael Keaton's Batman to show up, for Jeffrey Dean Morgan's Thomas Wayne to show up from Zack Snyder's Snyderverse. It also gives the possibilities for other characters from the CW to show up, or if they wanted to, which I don't think they will, dive into the DC Black. Then we go to the DC Black, which is also in theaters. And the first of this was The Joker, huge success, $1 billion film and a great film that won many Oscars, great performances. That's DC Black label. But also the Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, is also in this DC Black. It's Matt Reeves' trilogy. It's his own thing. It's his own Batman. Now, they could connect the Joker and the Batman together if they wanted. Who knows? Maybe there's talks of Joaquin Phoenix coming back for a Joker 2. Who knows what they could do? But that would also be pretty cool. But those are their own things in DC Black label. Then we move to the CW. Now, this has shows like Arrow, Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, sorry. We also have the Lois and Superman show coming in January. That's the CW. That's its own thing. If you don't like the DC Black label stuff, go watch the Earth 1 in theater stuff. Go watch HBO Max stuff. Go watch the CW. It depends. See, this is up to you as a fan. What do you like? What don't you like? Go watch the stuff that you do like, and give a miss at the stuff that you don't, because this is exactly what the DCU is doing going forward. If you don't like the MCU, if you don't like the Marvel stuff, then where else do you go with the Marvel properties? You have to kind of stick with it and watch it because they're not going to change their ways. With DCU Multiverse, there's so many possibilities. And for me, as a Batman fan, as a DCU fan, as a Schneider fan, as a DC Black Label Joker fan, this gets me excited, and it should for you also, because look at the possibilities. And look, the CW world, Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller's Flash, they already came toe to toe. They met each other already thanks to the Flashpoint timelines going to the other world. So who's to say that Grant Gustin's Flash can't show up in the Earth 1 Flashpoint film for a cameo? I'm not saying it will, but these are all possibilities that could happen, and it gets me truly excited. And look, that kind of lays it down. Well done to Super Batsy for such a great layout and such a great way at looking at this, and it makes a lot of sense. It's very easy to understand, and I'm all for it. And you guys should just go with the flow and just see where all this takes us as fans, and just watch the stuff that you like, and just give a miss to the stuff that you do not want to watch, and that's perfectly fine. So we know from the Flash 2022 solo film that he's going to mess with time. He's going to try and go back to save his mother, who of course was murdered when he was a child, and his father was convicted of this murder. He's in prison. He goes back to change things. He probably discovers this in Zack Snyder's Justice League, how to use time travel. So then he tries to go back and change things to a better ideal world for himself. It messes everything up, and Edward Thawne, or the Flashpoint, the Reverse Flash, should I say, he is a villain of the Flash, and he is kind of the one responsible for all this. But just say that Flash tries to chase him through time. This is probably where he meets Michael Keaton's Batman. This is probably where he comes across Thomas Wayne's Batman of that world. So that's how it's going to happen, more than likely. And then he's going to try and change events, try and change everything back, going back in time. And probably with the help of Michael Keaton, maybe the help of Thomas Wayne. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe Thomas Wayne will replace... Okay, so maybe Thomas Wayne will show up. And maybe Ben Affleck's Batman will show up. And maybe Michael Keaton's Batman will show up. But I'm thinking that Michael Keaton might replace the Thomas Wayne role from the comics. So in the comics, he goes back, he meets Thomas Wayne. Thomas Wayne is a badass Batman. He does what he wants. He'll kill to get the job done. His wife, Martha, is the Joker. I think we'll just see a cameo of that world. I think we'll see a small snippet of it. I think we will see more of the Michael Keaton world of the Burtonverse. I think Ezra Miller's Flash will go into that world, and then he will work with Michael Keaton's Batman to change everything. Because who knows what heroes is in the Michael Keaton world of his world? Who other heroes are there? Is there another version of Superman? Is there another version of Cyborg? Who knows? Aquaman, Wonder Woman? We'll have to see, but I think he's going to work with Michael Keaton's Batman. And from the comics, Michael Keaton's going to take that role of Thomas Wayne, but not play Thomas Wayne, play Bruce Wayne, play Batman. That's the way I think they're going to go with it. But it gets me excited, and there's so many more possibilities. Who's going to show up? I really hope that Jeffrey D. Morgan has a cameo. I really hope that Michael Keaton has a bigger role, which I think is going to happen. I hope that Ben Affleck shows up at the end of the film to get a letter from his father, and that should be a very emotional scene like they did in the comics. But guys, let me know your thoughts on this, and tell me know if I broke it down in a more simpler way for you. Let me know if you think I'm wrong or right, but I thought that the way I was thinking of it there, I think it kind of makes a lot more sense than some people were saying. I think that's the way they're going to go. That's just my opinion, of course, my theories, but I think it just makes sense if they go that way. But of course, time will tell, time will explain, time will tell the truth, and more reports will start coming out in the coming months if any of this is true. But Michael Keaton has to accept, Thomas Wayne, Jeffrey D. Morgan has to accept, and Ben Affleck has to be happy enough to come back and do that role also. But guys, let me know your thoughts on this. It gets me excited as a DC fan. How does it make you feel? Let me know in the comments below. Give a like, comment, subscribe, come and follow me on all the social medias. You see that in the description. Come talk to me about movies and let me know what you think of this video. Anyway guys, see you next time. Enjoy. And we are now living in the DCEU multiverse.